Hi, and welcome to Wellness Possibilities with Monica Fuss. I'm Monica Fuss, your wellness coach and sailor, helping you to sail to the smoother waters of healthier living. And we're working on part 2 of our series, Fixing Your Foods. Last time we talked about cutting back on sugar. Today, in this episode, we're going to talk about cranking up your fats, and not just any fats. We want healthy fats. We want good fats. So, and why in the world would we want to talk about fats after all these years of being told fat's bad, fat makes us fat? Well, most of the cells in your body are actually made up of fat, and even up to 60% of your brain cells are made of fat. So healthy fat is actually essential to your health. That's why it's good. That's why it's healthy. But bad fats are toxic. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. But even 40 years ago, we've been brainwashed by different institutions that have told us that low fat, no fat diets are the way to go, and that to combat heart disease. But what has happened over these 40 years? We've become more, as a generation, we've become more and more fat. There's a lot more heart disease. Those numbers have just skyrocketed. So maybe, according to the doctors that I'm listening to, they're saying, well, maybe it's not the fat that's causing all this heart disease. Maybe it's the sugar. All that extra weight around our gut is caused from that excess sugar that we keep eating, or the foods that turn to sugar and stored as fat around our belly. So if we want to start burning that fat off of our body, so one of the nutritional things that we need to do is to stop eating the sugar, like we talked about last time. And this time we need to add eating fat to spark our fat burning engines, so we can start burning that off. So let's talk about good fats, bad fats. What's the difference, and which ones are going to be good for us to eat and which ones are bad, so we'll remember to cut those out of the diet. Okay, so I'm going to keep this as simple as possible, but let's start with some of the bad fats that you want to avoid, and that is rancid fats, vegetable oils, and hydrogenated oils. And things like margarine and shortening and corn oil and cottonseed oil, canola oil, safflower oil, and soybean oil. Those are just to name a few. And why in the world would you want to cut those out? Well, it was back in the mid-1800s where vegetable oils were first created. Before that, all we had was animal fats that our generations and our ancestors ate. But in the mid-1800s, the vegetable oils were created, and they were created in the factory. They're not made in nature. So the way those oils were created was by heating and bleaching and alkalizing and deodorizing and chemically treating those vegetables in order to create the nice, pretty little clear oils. And they were advertised to us as here, these are going to help you to avoid heart disease, these are going to be healthy for you, you need to have those. But really, by going through that process of all the heating, bleaching, alkalizing, deodorizing, chemically treating, they're actually creating a toxic poison for our bodies. And would they tell us that? Heck no. So instead, we want to stay closer to nature. So when it comes to oils and fats, let's think about, instead, use more of what's close to nature, like pure olive oil for your salads, coconut, avocado, or grapeseed oil for your cooking, or even just organic butter. So those are some good fats that we can add. Now, when it comes to nuts and seeds, there's some things we need to avoid that are actually kind of bad fats for us, if you will. And those are any kind of nuts and seeds that have been oil roasted, sugar coated, flavored nuts and seeds. We want to avoid those, and instead we want something closer to nature. Try raw nuts, or dry roasted nuts, all those wonderful cashews, walnuts, almonds, sunflower seeds, and pecans, coconut, all of those in the raw or dry roasted, along with their butters. Much better option for a good fat. Okay, so now let's talk about milk. Milk, we've been told, is like, there was a commercial with the mustache, the milk mustache. Remember, it's like, oh gosh, everybody needs their milk. Well, more and more of milks have actually are bad fats for us. And we'll talk about this more next week. But for now, I'm just going to say those are on the bad fat side. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them are the milk and milk-based products, and also the milk alternatives like the grain milks, like the rice milks, the oat milks. Those we want to avoid. And instead, we want to, some good fats would be a full fat coconut milk, almond milk, or cashew milk. Those are nut milks. So instead, we want to use those. We'll talk about some other ones next week that are some protein-based meat. So when we talk about proteins, we're going to talk about what some good proteins, so some clean meats and that we can have. So kind of bottom line for us is the closer to nature that we can stay, the better the health, the better the fat is for us. So we want to increase those good fats through olives and avocados and nuts and seeds that are in the raw or dry roasted, the nut milks, the nut butters, and the clean oils that we talked about earlier, the clean dairy, the clean meats and eggs. And like I said, we'll talk a little bit about those proteins a little bit more next time in our part 3. But for today, our call to action is put in the message below. What's 1 or 2 of the good fats that you're already eating and loving, or maybe that you are going to start this next week? What baby step are you going to take toward something, a good fat? You're going to exchange one of the bad fats that you've been using, and this week you're going to start using a good fat. So I want to put in the comments below what that is. And I hope you've been enjoying this series on fixing your foods. I look forward to helping you next week in part 3. So thank you so much for being here. Monica Fuss, your wellness coach and sailor, helping you to sail to those smoother waters of healthier living. Talk to you next time.